Multiplication is just adding numbers together a specified number of times. To perform multiplication, start at 0 and then add the number that you're counting in, which will be one of the two numbers which are being multiplied, and you will add it together the other number in the multiplication. For example, we can add 3 8 times, or we can add 8 3 times. Both ways give you the same answer. This idea of adding to get what your multiplication value is can be used to create a multiplication table. When you're working with bigger numbers, you can speed up the multiplication process and make it a lot easier. For example, adding 368 together 24 times, or adding 24 together 368 times would take a very long time. To begin the process of speeding it up, copy the multiplication down, lining up the place values. So the first step that you'll do is you'll write down all of the numbers that you're going to use. So in this case, I'm going to use both 2 and 4, so I count in 2s and I count 4s 9 times. Then I need to multiply each of the numbers together. So how I normally begin is I'll start off with the bottom right number, and then I'll multiply it with each of the numbers on the top line, starting from the right going to the left. For the first one, I've got 4 times 8, so I go across to both the 4 and the 8, and I can see that that's 32, and I can just write that down below the multiplication. Next thing I do is I'm going to multiply 4 by 6, but before I do that multiplication, I look at the number of numbers which are to the right of the numbers which I'm multiplying together, and in this case there is one number, and I therefore put 1 0 down. Then I do the multiplication between 4 and 6, which is 24, and I put that in front of the 0 I just wrote. It continues on for the next one, so I've got 2 numbers behind, so I put down 2 zeros, and I do 3 times 4. Now I'm moving to the second number on the bottom line, but I'm continuing to follow the exact same process. I've got one number behind the numbers I'm multiplying, so 1 0 down, and I do my 2 times 8. Now I've got 2 numbers behind the numbers I'm multiplying, and 2 times 6, and then 3 times 2. After I've finished doing that, I then add all of the values which I have obtained through the multiplication together to get my final answer. If I'm multiplying with negative numbers, the process for multiplication does not change. I still get the same absolute value, but if I have a negative and a positive, or a positive and a negative, the result is going to be negative. If both of my values are positive or both of my values are negative, my result is going to be positive. Multiplication by tens, hundreds, etc. can be done in the same process as shown before, but it's much quicker to move the decimal point or add zeros behind the number. So for example, 3 times 10 will be 30, so I place as many zeros behind the number which I'm multiplying as there are zeros behind the 10, 100, etc. If I'm multiplying a decimal number by a 10, 100, etc., I move the decimal point to the right as many places as there are zeros, and if I move it an extra point beyond where I have figures in the decimals, I put a 0 in. When multiplying decimal numbers, the first thing you need to do is multiply both decimal numbers by 10, 100, etc., so that they are no longer decimals. After you've multiplied by 10 or 100, etc., then you go and do the normal multiplication method. After you get your result, you then divide your result by the number that you multiplied it before with. Division by 10 or 100, etc. just moves the decimal point in the other direction to multiplication. All these multiplications can be checked on the calculator.